So I posted yesterday about, well, two things. One, I asked people, what would you be like if you had more power in your life? And a bunch of people wrote, well, what do you mean by that? Can you define it? I'm not sure, right? Um, this is a very common response that I find because I've been talking about power for quite a while now, about a year, year and a half. I'm talking about it publicly. And the people that I run around with, I mean, you know yourself if you're watching this, they tend to be forward thinking, progressive, open minded, into alternative modalities, spirituality, left wing politics, however you want to define yourself, cultural creative, let's say, right? And there's a tendency in our community, our way of thinking and showing up in the world, there's a tendency to question power. And rightly so. I mean, we've seen what the powers that be, the effect that, the negative effect that power can have, right? In the way that it creates war, it destroys the planet, and so on and so forth. And so we look at power and we kind of we feel a bit standoffish. We question power, right? Is power a good thing, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when I say power, what I'm talking about, well, there's a few things, but really I want to define it here. And the closest thing that I can use to define it is clarity. That's a little different, right? A little different than what you might think of when I say power. What is power? So, what if power was clarity? And what I mean by that is that we have a tendency in our lives to surround ourselves, cloud our judgment, cloud our minds with confusion, unconsciously. Of course, we don't do this intentionally, we don't do it purposefully. We do this unconsciously because it's a mechanism that keeps us safe, keeps us protected. If I don't have clarity about what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to go, then I get to stay in my comfort zone. I don't have to put myself out there, make myself vulnerable, and expose myself to risk, right? So clarity is dangerous. It's very dangerous. And so we fear it. We tend to avoid it. My question to you is, what if you had absolute clarity? What if your life was devoted to clarity? What would you do? What would you achieve? What would occur? So that is my question, right? That's how I'm going to define power today. It's clarity. Okay? Power is clarity. Now, the other thing that I really want to say about this is that there's a difference between force and power. Force is your own internal efforts. People talk about, oh, well, what if the ego is powerful? That's a bad thing. So, no. The ego can only force it. The ego doesn't have power. And what I mean by that is that power takes surrender. Power is a tapping into something much fucking deeper. It's purpose. It's dharma. It is your fierce, undeniable will in this world to bring forth whatever it is that you're supposed to bring forth, to express what it is that you have to express. For me, what this turned into is this whole fucking coaching extravaganza, this thing in my life that, I just woke up one day, I said, you know what, I don't want to do what I have been doing, which is staying small and not really putting myself out there, because I've always wanted to put myself out there and to talk and to say the things that I'm saying now. And before I was afraid to, right? With fear and confusion, I don't know what to talk about. I know what to talk about. I fucking know what I want to talk about and what I want to express. I'm only when I'm scared. And so I had to surrender to that desire and actually pick up the phone and live stream for the first time a little over 2 years. And since then, I have created a whole new career for myself, which is, this is only just the beginning for myself. So I'm curious to see how clarity and power and your surrender to something greater, your purpose, shows up in your life. The last thing I want to leave you with, which I just touch upon here, and which is something that I want to experiment with and play with and present moving forward, is if you look, you look Eastern traditions, right? Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. if you look at some of the deities in these Eastern traditions, there's this tradition of having these fierce gods. These gods that are like, like fucking fierce, powerful, right? And, when the Western world first went to Tibet and they saw these gods that looked like demons, they were like, oh my God, these guys are worshiping demons, right? They didn't understand. These gods, these fierce, intense, powerful gods, are the forces of Dharma, the forces of spiritual awakening that don't give a fuck about your resistance. Don't give a fuck about your concept of death, your idea that, life is impermanent, right? It's just fucking truth. It is clarity. And I ask you to go and just like Google Kali, you know, this goddess from India who is just covered with skulls and the arms of people and ripping people's heads off. I mean, it's just like it's you think some of the Hollywood horror films are scary, are intimidating. Go and take a look at some of these depictions of fierce gods. That is power. And that's power not in a corrupt or evil way, but that is true power, the power of the fucking universe. Last thing I'll say, Bhagavad Gita. My favorite passage in the Bhagavad Gita is where Arjuna is basically, being very stubborn and not listening to Krishna, God of the universe, right? And Krishna is like, okay, so you want to see my true form? Here it is. And Krishna reveals himself in his true form, right? Up until that point, Arjuna has been relating to this beautiful blue personage, right? This entity. And Krishna reveals his true form. And you know what? It is fucking scary. It is awe-inspiring. Arjuna breaks down in tears, is like, please, please, put on a beautiful face again, right? And treat me with like some sort of something I can relate to. Because power is scary. True power is really fucking scary. And it's hard to hold. It's hard to harness. So I leave you with that. If you're a spine person and power for you is something that doesn't sit right in your body, I ask you to go take a look at some of these fierce deities and see where that sits for you, right? And if this is making any sense to you at all, I'd love to hear how it lands for you. Please leave a comment, say what's up. All the time I do these live streams and people are like looking off the side, like communicate, interact, ask a question. I'm here, right? Let's this is real life, all right? I just fucking love to hear from you. How does power show up in your life, right? What is your relationship to power, to clarity, to that fierce devotion to your purpose? That's a mic drop. I'll leave it right there. Wishing you guys a happy Friday and a happy weekend, and I'll speak to you very soon. Peace.